Hey everybody, welcome to Homeopathy at Home with Melissa. I'm Bree here with Melissa again. Today we are going to cover something that we actually talk about often in our gateway classes, provings and aggravations. Those sound like maybe big words or words you wouldn't associate with homeopathy. So if you're new, we'll talk about them, what they mean, how to tell when you're experiencing one, and maybe some questions that we get often.
Yeah, so one thing that I really love that you came up with, Bree, is instead of calling it an aggravation, calling it an acceleration because that's really what it is.
Yeah.
So people get really worried about provings. And what I always learned in school, and I still see in my practice, is they're uncommon. They're they're just they don't happen really, and so a lot of people what we see is people take a remedy 1 or 2 times and have a brand new symptom and say that they've proved it. Um, the real definition of a proving is let me see if I have it right here.
Okay, I don't mean to derail you, but I'm thinking I never even knew about provings when I first started using homeopathy. I just used the remedies and I never had a worry about something going wrong or something
Me either.
happening. And so I'm even wondering if maybe just the fact that we are so used to allopathic medicine creating side effects
Mhm.
that we almost are looking for a reason or looking for something to go wrong, um, or
Yeah,
waiting for something to go wrong, I should say.
so I've said this recently how of course, my goal is to teach you all how to do this at home, how to do it well. So I need to teach every aspect of it, but it wasn't until I started teaching aggravations and provings that I got all of this worry because before I became a homeopath, my homeopath just said, "There's nothing to worry about. There's no side effects. There's
Mhm.
nothing." So she didn't teach me about provings, so I had no worries about provings. But now more people are worried about it because they know that it's something that could happen. But the true definition of a proving is a prover is a person who goes and takes a it's a well person who's not sick, who takes a remedy and they have symptoms from that remedy because they're well and they don't need that remedy. Does that make sense? So
Right, so you're basically proving that the remedy works,
exactly.
that
That's what the remedy does.
yes,
That
that in
that's what the
a sick
remedy
person,
treats or
treats
cures.
those symptoms. In a well person, it can I wouldn't say create, I guess technically can
Yeah,
create those because it's almost like that the medicine in those remedies in a well person don't have a thing to act on.
that's
Like, they're
right.
not fighting the illness at all because it doesn't exist there.
That's right. So when you're sick and you take the wrong remedy, the only thing that happens is nothing. You don't prove it when you're taking
For an
the
acute
wrong
illness,
remedy.
you're saying.
Right? Or even chronic. But
Okay.
here's the thing, if you continue to for long term taking the wrong remedy over and over and over again, then you could definitely start having symptoms of that remedy. And here's my best example. Rhus tox is the homeopathic poison ivy. And if you were to take Rhus tox every day, without needing it, it's the wrong remedy, you're taking it for the wrong thing, it's not correct, then you could start having random itching, right? Because poison ivy makes us itchy. So you could
Okay.
start having random itching. And if that were to happen, then you stop taking the remedy and that symptom stops. It's very easy and simple, nothing to be scared about.
So provings, maybe that's a symptom. What about okay, this is something we have heard too. Do provings cause symptoms of illness? Like, oh, I took arsenicum album and the next day I threw up all over the place or
Right?
maybe
So
cholestasis and I had really bad cramps? Um, or are those probably coincidental that your symptoms are evolving or changing?
so this is if you've just taken the remedy a few times, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, just a few times, or even just a few days, you can't prove a remedy that fast. So likely your symptoms have changed through your condition. We have to remember that homeopathy's job is to move your body through the condition faster and easier than you would have without homeopathy. So your symptoms change when you have a cold, cough, flu, stomach virus, whatever it is. So that remedy likely, rather than it being approving, was bringing something out either as a result of the condition that you're dealing with or something that you suppressed in the past, because that's
I was
homeopathy's
just
job.
my brain just started putting this all together. So, I'm thinking, let's say I start with a cold, okay? I have maybe some congestion. Um, I don't know. I feel like what often happens is somebody maybe takes aconite brionia or Ferrompos or something. And then later that night doesn't stick to the 4-dose rule, by the way. I think that's often paired with thinking that they're proving is often not sticking to a remedy at all and maybe jumping
Mhm.
around. Maybe take sanguinaria and then have a headache or like pressure or whatever. Maybe what's actually happening is not approving. Probably what's happening is an aggravation, like bringing up what you just said, that symptom sooner than maybe you would have felt it. Does that make
That's
sense?
right.
Is that kind of what
That's
you're
right.
saying?
So the aggravation is, like you call it, an acceleration of your current symptoms. So your cough gets worse, or you throw up a little bit more for just, a time or two. And I don't want to scare people, but it's getting it out. The point of homeopathy is to get it out so
You're
that
not
you can
suppressing.
be done with it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So if your cough gets worse, that's where people freak out and say, "Oh my gosh, no. This is, oh no,
Mm.
I'm getting worse. I have to stop this remedy. This remedy is making me worse. I
Yeah.
saw that when I took this remedy, I got worse." And that's homeopathy's job, is to bring it out. So you might get worse before you get better. So we have to remember that.
So I like to use the example of, I know I probably said it in the gateway classes, but when I first experienced an aggravation, I only remember hearing that it was a good thing. Well, it just happened to be that a fever
Mhm.
represented that was working or something. Um, and it was when I used belladonna when I was getting the flu. And I took belladonna, and within that evening or that an hour later, my fever went high. I was miserable. And I remember thinking, that's a good sign. And I took another dose, which I don't know, maybe I should or shouldn't have. But by the next morning, I am not kidding you, it was one terrible night. I woke up feeling like 100% better. Not even like you usually wake up after the flu,
Mhm.
like a little bit hungover from being sick. I
Mhm.
literally woke up better.
Yeah.
And that still happens for me. A fever tends to be the thing that is accelerated the most common for me. Um, and that's kind of where I got that idea of I feel like it pushed it out of my body super fast and intense, and then it was
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah. And so that's what we have to just know, that if we know that that's how homeopathy works, we can expect it and we can hang in there and do it.
Right.
And you know, there is, what is the word? A comparison, maybe, so to speak, of aggravations and versus provings to the biblical truth that we are to endure trials, but we are not to endure attacks,
Mm,
right? So sometimes the enemy attacks us. We're not to endure attacks from the enemy, okay? But we are to endure trials come, and they
mm,
make us stronger, and we learn and we grow in those trials. We were never promised an easy life here on earth, but when the trials come, we look to the Lord, we move through those. It doesn't feel good,
mm,
but we keep going. We do endure that. The attacks, no, we are not to endure attacks from the enemy. So the comparison is, we endure aggravations, but we do not endure provings. So if you really were to have a proving, no, you shut that down. You stop taking the
Mm,
remedy and
that's
it
good.
stops.
I
That's
like
it.
that you have several of those little, like, spiritual analogies that go with this. I've never heard them, and I love it. Um, I was gonna ask a question about aggravations too, in that sense where we endure them. And what about if they're, like, super intense, maybe with a chronic issue or something, you don't have to push through to that maybe till you're miserable. So maybe what are some ways that you can manage an aggravation or you don't wanna put a
That's
stop to
right.
it, so manage it, I guess.
That's right. You can slow down. So if the aggravation is too big and it's making you miserable to where you don't want to do this, you don't have to do that. You can slow down. So you can slow down on the frequency of the dosing is what I would do. I wouldn't stop taking the remedy because your aggravation is a good sign that the remedy is the right choice and it's doing its job. But you can slow down, back off. So let's say the protocol says to take it twice a day. Maybe you only take it once a day.
Okay.
And then for some people that are very sensitive like me, if a remedy says take it twice a day, I probably could take it once a week and have the same.
You are very
Really, I am
sensitive to
very
remedies.
sensitive.
It's
Mhm.
amazing. I kind
Yeah.
of have been secretly hoping that maybe the more I use homeopathy, like, the
That you would
more
get
you kinda, like, respond to it. I think it might just be who you are, though.
maybe, and also I do think it's how long too. I do. I think how long, because 'cause I've been using it for more than 20 years. I do think that, um, your body after so it depends on how old you are. After 20, 30, 40 years of using
Mhm.
allopathy and pretty much, I mean, that hurts. That hurts the body systems, and you almost have to retrain the body because you spent all those years shutting everything down, suppressing everything, telling it, "No, you can't come out." It's like the dog that's been caged up, in a, or chained up in the backyard for years.
Yeah.
It's not it's
Retraining takes a
doesn't
lot
know what to
longer
do
than a
when it gets
teenager.
free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
When it gets free, it's like, "What do I
Well,
do?"
then
It's your body's like, "What do I
and
do
that
with
kind of
this?"
gets into the, terrain theory, right?
Yeah.
So
That's the yes. Yeah, so when your terrain is strengthened, then you move through it easier. You may become more sensitive to the remedies and not have to use them as much, but it should definitely be easier and easier to use the remedies. So, I worked with a classical homeopath in the beginning, and I didn't I didn't treat anything acutely. She didn't do anything with my acute conditions. She told me to take vitamin C and elderberry and echinacea and
mhm.
astragalus. So I had already been using homeopathy a long time before I started treating acute conditions in
So,
myself and my family.
okay, what about then on the opposite end, if you're taking a remedy and it's working some and wears off quickly, or my brother-in-law has bad allergies and he's been taking Apis 30 and he is eating those like candy. Like he says they work and then he needs more like very soon after.
In that situation, I would tell him to get a 200.
That is actually what I told him. I was
Mhm.
so that makes me feel good. Yeah,
Good.
I actually am making him your allergy protocol and doing
Good.
all of that. Um, that's kind of opposite of an aggravation, but when you know a or a remedy is working, you would up the potency before you would change the frequency.
So, you could change the frequency, but if he's eating that, if he's dosing himself that often, then I would say, so I would increase the frequency first, and then if that's not working, you're taking it a lot, then increase the potency.
Okay, that is good to know.
Yeah,
So
because if
then
it's working, then don't leave it.
right, that's what I told him. I think it's a good choice, but maybe we'll change the potency and take it less often, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and over time, I mean, just like you just said, it's retraining his body. He's always treated it
Mhm.
with Claritin or, you know, whatever that
Yeah.
nose spray. Flonase, what's it called?
Flonase.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Kyle used to love that stuff. So
Really?
oh, yeah. Now I got convinced him to use a neti pot, so that's better.
Awesome. Good.
Back to provings, though, and aggravations. Um, I don't know if you have anything else to add to the provings. I just think it's interesting how we worry so quickly, and maybe this is going on a tangent, but I know it's something you are passionate about, the worry and the fear. So maybe
Mm.
you could speak a little bit to the underlying issue may be more
Mm.
our worry or our fear or the baggage we're carrying from what we think we know about medicine.
That is so good. That's really good because I had such anxiety when I first started using homeopathy. I was on Lexapro. I had huge anxiety, and I was so worried about what this homeopathy thing that I'd never heard of
Mm.
before was going to do. I mean, you should have. I mean, I remember talking to this homeopath and emailing her. This was again more than 20 years ago. So I remember emailing her constantly and asking her questions. She probably was like, "This girl."
You were one of those.
I
Yeah.
was one of those. I was, and so if you are anxious, that's really the problem. So then we have these irrational thoughts. We have all these thoughts and we worry. So worry is ignatia, right? And so when we worry about all these things, when you're worried about provings too much, that's really the mental thing that you need to be treating rather than looking at everything and saying, "Is this approving? Is this approving?" Don't worry. I'm telling you, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I don't see them. I don't see provings. Um, the example that I give with the roost tox was a person who took roost tox for 3 years when it wasn't working
And it went away, you said, within a week
within a week, and
after
all
taking
he
it for
had,
3 years.
yeah, and all he had was some itching. He was like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
my legs are itching." I'm like, "Okay, stop the roost tox. Done."
right.
Simple, easy stuff. This
It
is
didn't give
not
him poison ivy or,
right. This is not big
something
deal
that's
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, that is really reassuring. I think it's really easy when we get into this world of taking ownership and more responsibility of our health
that's true.
to just second guess. I
That's
mean,
true.
and feel like you might do something wrong,
Yeah.
especially when we're doing it with our children or
Yep.
when you're giving somebody advice and you give them a remedy. I think it happens the most I hear in colds
Mm.
when
Mhm.
because they change so quick or headaches or something. But when you're giving people stuff and then they develop a new symptom or it gets worse, I can totally relate to that almost irrational worry. But I just think this is a really timely and perfect topic to cover and to hear from you. You've been practicing for a long time. You see people way more often than we do. And to just tell us to chill.
Yeah, it just doesn't happen. I just wouldn't worry about it at all. I don't worry about it at all. Again, it's good to know what it is, but one last thing that I think we didn't say about approving is, approving if you get a new symptom, have you ever had that symptom in your life?
Mhm.
So who can really remember? What if you're 50 years old and you have something that came up when you were something you had something when you were 10 and it's coming back out? That's not approving. So what if you don't
Mhm.
remember? But okay, fine. If you don't remember ever having that before, then you go and look in the Materia Medica, read the remedy. If it matches, stop taking the remedy and see if the symptom goes away.
Mm.
That's fine.
Well, you know
You
what?
can do that.
That is another good point to make and something to consider because as you start using homeopathy and your body is triggered to maybe sometimes handle this acute illness, but also maybe you're taking a remedy to help deal with these headaches. Maybe you get randomly and maybe that kind of aggravates something unrelated to your current acute illness. So feels like something totally different, but maybe it's really
Mhm.
helping uproot something you've carried or suppressed for a long time.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
aggravating
And that's
a
probably what's
chronic
happening.
illness in a way.
Yeah. That's probably what's really happening. So, yeah, I hope that was helpful for provings versus aggravations. And I hope that it just helps to ease your mind that you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much again. You are always very wise and so helpful. So thank you.
Thank you for being with me. It makes it much more fun. We'll see you
Always.
guys next time. Bye.